Hey everybody, this is David at Barnyard Bees. We got kind of unusual situation here. Okay, this nuke right here, this little 2-framer, what it was, when we sold one of our 5-frame nukes, we used this to restock that nuke for another 5-framer to sell in the future, or to one to grow out in the winter, or to do splits or whatever. So that's what this was. It was a queenless nuke, a queenless 2-frame. Sometimes I'll let these make their own queen because they're so small. And it is slow, but there's not a whole lot of bees invested in it, so it's not a big deal. As long as we can get a mated queen, we're okay. It does take about 30 days to do it that way. But what has happened, okay, this colony right here, when I did the split, what I did, the box was, it had a lot of wild comb, burr comb inside of it. So what I did, I set up a brand new 2-frame box, which is here, and I let those bees march in. Well, come a few days later, this is what we got. So what has happened is a swarm, pretty good size swarm actually. There's quite a few bees in here. There's no frames in this hive right here. This is just mostly just bees in there. It's quite a few. See if I can move it without disturbing them too much. They was a little bit angry a little while ago when I was messing with them. So, and it's heavy. So there's a lot of bees in there. Maybe 3 pound of bees, 4 pound maybe. Pretty good size swarm. But they chose to swarm into this colony right here. They probably picked it because they knew it was weak. It was queenless for one thing, so it was low risk. They had, it would be easy for them to set up a colony with their own queen if it was queenless, because the number of bees here would overwhelm these bees. So if they brought in their own queen, it would be no problem. So bees look at situations like that. But anyway, what I'll end up doing, I'll shake these bees. That's a lot of bees. But I'll go ahead and shake those bees into that 2-framer, and I'll watch it really close, because sometimes it's hard to understand why they pick these little tiny hives. But almost every time when they swarm, not all the time, but most of the time, they'll pick these little 2-framers to swarm into. And it's kind of odd. You think they would pick some of the 5-framers that are empty, but they do. They like these little 2-framers. That's why I'm a big believer in these, because they make great swarm catchers, and they're really good to put swarms into, because they just fit. They fit in there very well. Now that is a lot of bees to fit in there, but they chose this hive to swarm into. Now they are congregated here, so what I'll have to do is shake those bees into here, and I'll look for the queen, and it's a possibility there could be 2 or 3 swarms there. You never know. I do have a queen exclude right here, and probably what I'll do is I'll end up shaking it into another hive to try to find the extra queens. But that's kind of off subject what I was going to talk about originally, but I just wanted to show you that. I thought that was interesting. For some of you who may not seen our 2-framers, get you some of these built. I got instructions on how to build them. They're very simple. I'll put some more in this link as well on how to make these little 2-framers. You won't be disappointed. Once you get to using these things, you will absolutely love them. But what I want to talk about today is we're in almost mid-June now. So what we're having problems with now, not us, but in general as beekeepers throughout the country, is hive beetles, wax moths, and Varroa mites. So what you need to do, you need to start thinking right now about what you need to do. Hopefully you've already had this planned out, but you need to start making sure that you absolutely do, because as the summer goes on, their strength will only build up stronger and stronger and stronger. Now what we recommend for hive beetles, we use these right here, propolize a little bit. You can see where when they're in the hive a little bit too long, the bees will propolize them. These are beetle barns. And if I can get one of these open, a lot of propolis in here. So look at the dead hive beetles in there. Quite a few. Now this is an old one here that I pulled out that's been sitting on top of the hive for a while. Every once in a while, about once a month, you need to go in and clean this propolis. You see right here in the holes, these bees, what they do, they try to trap hive beetles. So in their mind, what they're thinking, they'll chase the hive beetles in here, then they try to propolize it shut. They don't know, of course, that it's a trap and it's poison for the hive beetles. You put your bait right here, and these things, to me, is the best hive beetle trap there is. Now, some people like the Beetle Blasters. I don't have any right here because I don't use them, but some people love them. Beetle Blasters, or they go in between the frames, and you fill them up with oil, preferably like mineral oil that doesn't go rancid real bad fast. And it goes in between the frames, and the bees chase them into those holes and they fall in. They do work okay. A lot of people love them. Well, we sell those as well. We have those Beetle Barns or whatever you need at barnyardbees.com. But my honest opinion, to me, this is my favorite right here, because you can put bait right here, poisonous bait that will kill them, and it works very well. And another thing I want to talk about when it comes to hive beetles, do not, absolutely do not let grass grow under your hives. Keep it bare, keep it bald, and keep it rocky as possible. If you have all those scenarios right there, it makes it less and less likely that those hive beetles will take over the colony. A few hive beetles in your hive is no problem. The bees will manage them well. It's when they start pupating, hatching out, burrowing in the ground, coming back in mass numbers is what really gets you. And then they lay numerous amount of eggs and larvae, and they will wreck your hive really, really fast. I know people get tired of hearing me say this, but chickens. If you got chickens, preferably game chickens, they will absolutely work these hives. You can come out here every single day in the morning especially, and these chickens are working under these hives, digging and pulling out those larvae and eating them. They're the best thing for hive beetle control that you can possibly get. That's the most natural, most organic way. There's no pesticides involved. Those chickens, game chickens are better because they're better workers. So if you can possibly do that. Now what I recommend to some people, if you have a small apiary, is think about this. Make you like a small dog kennel type condition with chain link fence. Throw you a few game chickens in there, or even banny chickens, and I promise you there will not be any hive beetles in there. Those things will completely control those beetles. So that's something you can do. Now as far as wax moths go, what we do, I don't know if you can see it from here. I have one hanging up right there. See that drain pipe? I have a bug zapper set up there. I had one sitting right here at the corner of that chicken house. It went bad. I got to get another one. You can get these at Lowe's or Home Depot or wherever, Walmart. What we use is dusk to dawn. They kick on at night and off in the daytime, and no, they absolutely do not catch bees. I've never had a bee that I can ever see get killed in these bug zappers. I've had so many people ask about the bug zappers killing the bees, and they do not kill the bees, but they absolutely will kill the wax moths. So you can knock your numbers way down by doing that. So that'll help you control that. Now, Varroa Mite, like I talked about in the last video, starting June. Now, it depends where you're at in the country. Now consider, I'm talking about North Georgia here. Usually by June, mid-June, most people have their supers pulled off. The bees were already through the major part of the nectar flow. What's left from here through the goldenrod is very little, and what I recommend is you leave that for your bees. So you should really be pulling your honey now and then start treating for Varroa mites. Some people do believe in treating with oxalic acid while honey supers are on. You know, it's kind of up for debate. There's no real evidence out there one way or the other that shows that it's safe or it's unsafe. So use your own discretion. If you don't feel safe doing it, then pull your supers and start treating with oxalic acid. That's our go-to tool for Varroa mites. It works excellent. It does really well. It kills the mite on contact. And you know, we recommend doing it once a month through June, July, August, September. And then depending on what part of the country you're in, we go from frost, your first frost, back 3 weeks to there, from there, and start treating. So ideally, what would be ideal would be to treat 3 consecutive treatments in the fall, and then right with timing with your frost. Now that's hard to guess, but you know, just do your best estimates. It don't have to be precise, because that timeline right there is not going to be a whole lot of mites coming in anyway. So that'll eradicate the mite cycle. It'll completely break the mite cycle into the winter. You're going into winter mite free. Vaporizers is what you want to use. There's different type of vaporizers. They're as cheap as $89 all the way up to the best tool that exists is a Pro Vape 110 for around $489. That is recommended for people that has 20 or more hives. Now, like I talked about in the last video, dearth. Yes, we're absolutely in dearth. And I know that because I have a barrel of honey that we extracted. And once we drained the barrel out, I set the barrel over around the corner, and it just packed full of bees, and they couldn't wait till I got it open. When you see signs like that, you know absolutely for sure you're in dearth. Because when those bees want honey that aggressively or sugar, I can assure you they're in dearth. And this is another sign here, right here. When they're taking this bee pollen, this artificial bee pollen, it's what we use. It's a Ultra Bee, and it's the best that exists that is man-made. There's none better that you can get better than Ultra Bee for artificial pollen. Now, let's see if I can open this one-handed. I filled this up completely full last week, and it was packed. You can see where they've taken it down pretty good bit. So they're absolutely interested in this, and they're trying to take it down, and yes, they need it and they want it. So my word of advice when it comes to pollen and sugar water, if they take it, they need it. So you can see that they are taking it here. This is nothing compared to later part of the dearth in summer, and even in like when you get into the fall. You can go back and watch some of my older videos. One's called Fear of the Bees. I think it was in November or December, and the bees were tearing this pollen up because it's a part of the year where there's absolutely zero pollen out there, and they will take it down very well with no problem at all. And this right here will keep your bees building brood, and they won't slow down, because the queen, when she reads that there's less pollen coming in, she will slow down. It's fact. I've seen it time and time again with colonies, you know, feeding pollen versus not feeding pollen. When you stop feeding pollen and there's no pollen out there, your production will slow down. The queen will determine how she's going to lay according to the pollen coming in, the nectar coming in, the length of the days, and the temperature. Right now we have length of the days and temperature in our favor, no doubt, but it could slow down with a factor of being less pollen and less nectar. So by you supplementing, and the good thing about pulling your supers now, at least here in this zone, zone 7 in North Georgia, and getting your honey out of the way, getting it extracted, get it put in your jars, and leaving the rest of the honey for the bees, you can start feeding sugar water and start feeding pollen and get your bees build up and do more splits and build your colonies up for winter. And here's what I recommend for people that's into beekeeping or getting into beekeeping. And some people don't want to hear this because they'll say, well, I only want 2 hives. Well, I'm telling you what, if you go into winter with 2 hives, you're probably going to be disappointed coming out of the winter. If you want to keep 2 active hives, at least raise 4. And you need double what you want to keep as production. Now, they don't have to be a full 10 framer. They can be in a nuke like this, like a 5-frame nuke. In this day and age, it's harder to raise bees than it used to be, because we got so many issues now than we used to as beekeepers back in the 70s and 80s. I got inspired back in the 70s when I was a kid with beekeeping. My neighbor down the road had 2 beehives. He had the same 2 beehives every single year. He didn't do anything except pull a super and out a super, and that was it. He didn't have any problems with his bees getting Varroa Mite, hive beetles, diseases, and stuff like that. It was so easy. And I remember me and my dad built my first beehive when I was 12 years old. It was back in the 70s. So that's been years and years ago. So we built the frames, we built everything, the box, and that was our first experience with beekeeping. But it was inspired by my old neighbor that lived down the road from us, or down this back alley, that had 2 beehives. And I always remember that, and I tell people that story because it was so easy back then in the 70s to raise bees. But now it's once you learn how to do it, it's not hard. It just try to add a few more hives to your apiary to make sure that you get through the winter, because going into winter, if you go through the winter with 2 hives, you may disappoint when you come out of the winter with no hives. But if you run 4 and you lose 2, well, you still have colonies to reseed from. That way you don't have to buy bees every single year. And then ideally, what a person should do is have a situation where you can raise your own queens. You know, I recommend these 2 framers. If you want to keep 4 colonies, 4 big colonies, well, raise you 4 of these nucs right here along with it, and about 4 of these, 4 or 8 of these little 2 framers. You could do all that in an area the size of this rack right here easily. This is I think 16 foot long. So that's what you could do. You could run 4 of those 2 framers, 4 of these mini nucs, and 4 big hives in the area of this right here, and very easily. It doesn't take that much room and that much more effort. That way you always have minis that you can raise your own queens in. If you lose a queen, you always have nucs that you can replace your big colonies if you lose them over the winter. So it's just how you got to think now when it comes to raising bees. Now, I know I get to jabbering, and when I get to talking about bees, I could honestly probably go on 3 hours like this talking, but eventually I got to shut the video down. So I just wanted to get people's attention, especially the new beekeeper. Do something with your hives right now. Don't let them be taken over by hive beetles, wax moths, and Varroa Mite. Get your supplies, whether you get them from us or not. Get them somewhere, but get them, because we need every beekeeper we can get to help save the honeybee, because we are in bad shape, and the more and more people we can get to raise bees, the better off we are. So if you need supplies, barnyardbees.com, we got everything you need there. But if you don't, get them somewhere else. That's fine, but just get them. You know, get the Beetle Barns, the Beetle Blasters if you want, if you would prefer those. Your oxalic acid vaporizers, your Ultra Bee to start feeding your bees with, but get it. No matter where you get it and get your bees strong, and let's get you through the winter. Your first year beekeepers, that's why we're here. That's why we make these videos. We try to get people to be able to get their bees through the winter. So I've jabbered long enough, and don't forget, click on the little bell, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Barnyard Bees.